The year was 1939. The world had just survived one great war, but peace was a fragile illusion. Empires were rebuilding, ambitious leaders were rising, and hatred was quietly growing in the shadows, waiting for its moment to strike. In Germany, one man's voice thundered through the ruins of national defeat, promising glory, revenge, and power. Adolf Hitler, a name that would soon become a global symbol of destruction and tyranny. On September 1, 1939, without warning, German tanks rolled into Poland. The world woke up to the nightmare of World War II in a matter of weeks. The fire of conflict spread across Europe, and the continent's silence was replaced by the wail of air raid sirens. Britain stood alone against the storm. Every night, bombs rained down over London in the Blitz. Families hid underground in tube stations and shelters, praying the next explosion wouldn't be the one to take their home. The skies turned a terrifying red as the city burnt, yet the British spirit refused to break. "We shall never surrender," declared their new Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, and the world listened. France, a victor of the First World War, fell within weeks. The speed and brutality were shocking. Europe was bleeding. The Nazi war machine seemed unstoppable, a relentless force crushing everything in its path. But beyond the horizon, across the vast Atlantic, another giant began to stir from its slumber: the United States of America. December 7, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The morning peace of Hawaii was shattered by the roar of engines. Japanese bombers struck Pearl Harbor, destroying battleships and killing thousands of Americans. The sleeping giant had been brutally awakened. America declared war, and the conflict became truly global, a world at war. From the freezing, unforgiving snows of Russia to the burning sands of North Africa, the planet was on fire. Rommel's Desert Fox and his panzer divisions thundered through the desert, while Stalin's Red Army fought desperately on the massive Eastern Front. Millions died in the mud, the frost, and the smoke. Every inch of land, every single gain, was paid for in blood. In Stalingrad, the battle became legendary. It lasted 200 days and nights, a relentless meat grinder. The city was reduced to a graveyard of men and machines, a hellscape of rubble and ruin. The winter was merciless, freezing both flesh and hope. But the Soviet soldiers did not retreat. And there, in that ruined city on the Volga, Hitler's unstoppable army was finally, decisively broken. It was the turning point on the Eastern Front. June 6, 1944, D-Day, the largest amphibious invasion in human history. Allied soldiers stormed the beaches of Normandy under a hailstorm of machine gun fire and artillery. Thousands died before even reaching the relative cover of the sand, but they kept going, for freedom, for their countries, for the world. This was the beginning of the end for the Nazi regime in Western Europe. Behind the front lines, a horror of unimaginable scale was unfolding, a systematic genocide unlike anything seen before. millions of innocent Jews, along with Romani people, political prisoners, and others deemed undesirable, were taken to concentration camps, Auschwitz, Treblinka, Dachau. These names still whisper the cries of the dead, a permanent stain on human history. It was a moment when humanity seemed to have lost its very soul. And as the war in Europe drew to a close, the final terrifying chapter was written in fire over the Pacific. August 6, 1945, Hiroshima, one bomb, one blinding flash, one city gone. 3 days later, Nagasaki met the same fate. Over 200,000 lives were extinguished in seconds. The world witnessed the terrifying birth of the nuclear age, and with it, the death of its remaining innocents. The war was over. The guns fell silent, but the cost was staggering. Over 70 million people were dead. Entire cities were nothing but dust and rubble. Nations were broken, and the world was changed forever. The victors celebrated, but in a war of this scale, nobody truly won. Only graves multiplied across the face of the earth. History calls it a victory. But the earth remembers the screams. The soil still carries the bones of the fallen, from the beaches of Normandy to the fields of Russia. And the skies, if you listen closely, still seem to echo with their voices. This was not just a war. This was humanity tearing itself apart. Thank you for joining us on this solemn journey through history. If you found this reflection meaningful, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into the events that shaped our world. See you next time.